The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone and welcome to our How to Reduce Over-Servicing webinar. My name is Frankie and I work for the agency Works. Just to quickly introduce exactly who we are and also to talk about what we're going to be discussing today. So we are the agency Works. We're the implementation partner of a project management system called Synergist, which is used by over 500 agencies all over the UK. So not only do we implement the project management system, but we also work very closely alongside our clients in working with their business processes, such as how to increase their profitability, but also how to do things such as reduce their over-servicing. So hopefully today you'll find the webinar informative. There are a number of different ways which over-servicing can be reduced. Today we're going to just be looking into some certain areas. Please do obviously feel free to join any of our webinars and we will probably be discussing more areas. So today we're going to be looking at why are agencies over-servicing, and we'll also be looking at how can over-servicing be reduced. So just to kick things off, I wanted to start by showing you this graph, some statistics in which we gained from a survey we sent out to, I think, around 200 agencies completed this. And as you can see, the biggest financial challenge which they are facing in running their businesses is over-servicing. Now, when an agency is over-servicing, that can, if you look at the second highest one there, that can lead to problems with increase in profitability. Okay, so it can have a massive impact on any agency. If you can try and reduce that over-servicing, there are chances that you can start increasing profitability for obvious reasons. Okay, so the first topic, just to highlight that over-servicing there, the first topic is why are agencies over-servicing? Now, from research which we have gathered, but also from obviously working with a number of different agencies in their project management, we've discovered that the agency may not be selling enough hours, which is leading to over-servicing in the long term because resources are spending too much time on a job. Okay, because they haven't got anything else coming through. Also, inaccurate estimating. We're going to be talking about this a bit more later on in the webinar. This is actually a huge one, and we've got some really good tips on how you can make your estimating more accurate and how this can have good effects in the long run with your over-servicing. Also, spending too much time on a job. So going back to not selling enough hours, that's also a reason in which over-servicing can occur. Obviously, the creative team, they love what they do. If they've got a job which they're enjoying and there's nothing else immediately coming through, they're going to carry on spending time on that job, which actually could go over the original budget. Okay. Human error, which can't always be helped. However, we can start spotting patterns. So again, I'm just going to be going over some tips later on into how to start spotting patterns. The main areas are things like the time recording, ensuring that any notes are recorded against the time. Okay, so you can start, spotting any patterns with human error. Obviously, it happens from time to time and it can't always be helped, but it can certainly be reduced. Using a different resource, so that's looking into if you've estimated a specific resource to carry out the work, but actually, let's say a more junior resource has done the work, that means that you could actually go over on the hours. Sometimes it balances itself out due to the charge rates. However, sometimes it doesn't. And again, that can be another reason in which your agency will overservice. And finally, this is a huge one, which is client moves the goalposts. So again, we're going to be going over tips on how to try and reduce this, but also mainly with this one is how to spot those patterns, okay? And to find out that if a job has gone over, look at what's been originally estimated, look at if it is human error, if it's because you used a different resource, or is it because the client has moved the goalposts. If you're, recording time, recording notes against that time, keeping track of what was originally estimated. There may be some room for negotiation if the client has moved the goalpost. So that's something that we will be looking into. Okay, so basing it on all of those topics which we've just mentioned, we're also going to be looking at how all of these areas can be reduced. Okay. So I'd like to start by talking about the early stages, okay, of not only the job but also of just business in general. So communication and planning. Now, at a meeting with, there were around 10 agency directors in London a couple of weeks ago that I attended. Somebody said a quote, which is on the screen in front, which is, "A bad brief will have significant hidden cost implications." Now, the reason that I've included this within my webinar is I think it's an absolute fantastic quote because it is so, so true. And what that means is if you have based your estimate on basically their budget, so your client's budget, and not the brief, that can cause so much over servicing in the long run, okay, because you're not giving your team enough hours. So they will, if they need 10 hours to do a particular piece of work, they need 10 hours to do that piece of work, okay. So it's basing it, if the client's requirements are this, you should always build, okay, that job around their requirements. Whether or not you're commercially charging that, okay, that doesn't matter. It should always be based around the brief, okay? Otherwise, it can have hidden cost implications in the long run. Now, a way to do this is try and get the creatives to understand processes behind their work. So that's not only the creatives, but also people involved such as, project managers, account handlers. They may be the people that are actually producing these estimates, okay? So basically getting everybody to communicate, everybody to understand that it needs to be based on the requirements, okay? And also getting the creatives who are actually going to be doing the work to understand that we do have, these number of hours estimated. These are the possible implications if you go over the hours. If you are going to go over the hours, which it does happen and it always will happen, sorry, not always, but in terms of it does happen, there's not a lot we can always do about that. Okay, but in getting them to actually understand the implications will hopefully give them some benefit in knowing what's required of them, but also it will help out the project managers, account handlers in their security of, we've estimated 10 hours, hopefully that will be done in 10 hours. If not, get the creatives to understand the implementations, and then hopefully they can then come back to the account manager and give some feedback if they are going to go over. So also, talking numbers to them, so making them understand the profits in which you are hoping to achieve on each of your jobs. That may be one of the that may be one of the problems in which could occur, okay, if something is over serviced. And then also another one is selling the number of hours in which you have available, so they're not spending too much time on other jobs. Okay, so I'm actually going to flip across to a system to show you an example of where you can gain visibility on this type of thing. Okay, so if I open up our dashboard here, okay, so this is Synergist, the project management system, just to use as a live example to make it a bit more visual for you guys. So if we look at the bottom graph here, we're actually analysing the hours in which we have available within the agency. So going back to one of those reasons for over-servicing, which is the agency may not be selling the right number of hours in which they have available. Having this visibility, whether that's on a daily basis, it may be on a weekly or monthly basis, but what you can do, if you're not selling the number of hours in which you have available, the number of hours in which you have available will obviously vary based on utilization rates as well for your different resource. But if you're not selling those number of hours, also tracking things such as your pipeline, that can help you to get a good handle on, okay, so we've not sold the number of hours that we have available this month. We know that that may cause us to overservice on other jobs that we've got coming through, which are live. Okay, so let's look at our pipeline. Let's see, how many we've got, say, verbal commitment for. Let's try and get those pushed through. okay, to ensure that we are selling those number of hours in which we have available. All right, so again, just starting off at those early stages of planning a job, but not only planning a job, the planning of a business as well. One of the areas which relates to this, talking about staff utilisation, but also based on the hours in which you have available, in front of you, you've got just a really typical example of how to calculate the number of hours in which you have available. Also looking at, based on those number of hours you have available, this is the revenue that you hope to achieve, okay? And also, as you can see, we've got the utilisation rates present there as well. For a designer, you may want them to be, say, 75% utilised. If it's, account director, they may only be 30% utilised, because they've got a lot more internal non-chargeable hours in which they're going to be carrying out. Okay, so focusing still on the early stages, something that I did mention previously is having your estimate accurate. Okay, so one thing that a lot of agencies that we work with have changed their processes to work in this way, and they've seen a significant improvement, okay, with their over servicing, is to actually have a separate estimate to your quote. So this, if there are any tips that you take from this webinar, hopefully this is one. So your estimate should always be your internal budget based on the client's brief, not the budget. Okay, so this should be looking at the client's requirements. For that particular requirement, this is who we need, this is how long we need it, do we need any external purchases from suppliers as well? Based on your resources charge rates, which you need for this particular piece of work, it should give you an estimated charge for the job. Now, the reason I say to have them separate is your quote should be now your external, basically your client-facing estimate. So this should be, okay, are we going to sell it for the estimated charge based on the brief, or do we want to manipulate it? Do we want to either reduce or increase the value of the job? That may be due to, wanting to add some new business discount. It may also be due to the fact that you've under or over recovered on some previous jobs with that particular client. So whatever the reason, if there is manipulation needed, it should always be done in the quote. An example of where this can obviously cause over servicing is, say you've got a job which, based on the brief, you need to estimate 100 hours of a designer, just as an example. Okay, they've actually got quite a strict budget, therefore you want to add some discount. Now, what tends to happen sometimes is, rather than reducing those hours in the quoted area, we see agencies reducing those hours in the estimated area. So rather than reducing the value, they'll start reducing the hours. So rather than 100 hours, we want to give them, 25% discount, so let's reduce the hours by 25%. Now, this is one of the reasons for over-servicing, because that designer still needs 100 hours. So he is going to over-service on that job if he's only given 75% of those hours. Okay, so having those nice and separate makes such a huge difference. Now, streaming along from talking around the estimate, another area which is really key is to actually schedule those hours from the estimate, okay, onto your team. So rather than, people do this in many different ways. It may be a tool that you're using. You may also be using Excel, or it might be flying a piece of paper across the room. However you're doing this, ensuring that you are giving that designer the hours that have been estimated. Doesn't matter what's been charged for the job. Those are the hours that are estimated for the brief. By giving this to the designer, they then have the security that, one, they've been given the right amount of hours. Two, if those hours do go over, this is when you can start identifying some of those reasons why it could be. So it may be due to human error. It may be that the client has moved the goalposts, in which case you can do something about that because you know that original estimate was nice and accurate. what this also allows you to do is if you're giving, say, 10 hours for a particular task to a designer, but actually it keeps coming out that the designer's taking 15 hours, as an example, well, maybe it's that we need to change the original estimate. Okay, so it could either be something about the client moving the goalposts, but if it keeps happening and you keep spotting that pattern, actually, we need to allow more time for that particular task. So let's put that in the estimate. Okay, because that's a true reflection of what is needed. So by estimating the hours, scheduling the hours from the estimate, again, this is another reason or another way over-servicing can be reduced. Okay. Now, another area is time recording. Okay, so when your team have been scheduled your hours, again, whether they're using a tool, whether they're using spreadsheets, recording time is really, really key in any agency, because at the end of the day, you may have, purchases going through the business, of course, but time is what you're selling, okay? So you need to track the estimate, so what was originally estimated, and then what actually has happened. One reason in which you can start spotting those patterns and hopefully which will reduce the over-servicing is to actually look at what is happening. So allowing the studio team, the guys that are going to be recording time, to see what's been scheduled, recording their time, also having the ability to record notes against the work can increase that communication. So if something has happened, the account managers or the project managers, whoever's handling those jobs, they're aware of any jobs that may be leading to over-servicing. Hopefully that also means they can do something about it. So on this page here, if we look on the right-hand side, we've actually got some thermometer bars. Now, in this example, these thermometer bars are showing how far through the budget we are. So that's looking at if we've estimated 100 hours, if 50 hours have been carried out, okay, it's going to show that we're 50% of the way through the budget. What this then allows us to do by tracking this type of thing, okay, and ensuring that the guys are recording time against the jobs from the accurately scheduled hours, it's allowing us to say we're 50% of the way through the budget. Are we 50% of the way through the work? Or has the client moved the goalposts? Has there been some sort of human error? Is it actually a different resource that has recorded the time? Okay, so it just allows us to gain that visibility on any areas in which we are over servicing. Okay, so again, this is a really, really key one. So not only obviously getting it right at the planning stages, having that communication throughout the job, through time recording, also through recording notes, will allow you to gain the visibility which we can see here, okay? Because it may be that yes, we are 50% of the way through the budget, but actually we've used 50% of the budget on the first phase, whereas we should only really be 25% of the way through the budget. If the client has moved the goalposts, it may be that before it reaches, say 90% of the way through the budget, if you can see that this job will go over, sometimes, it is the case that we need to wear the cost. Other times you may be able to, do some renegotiation based on exactly what has happened through that pipeline. Okay, so finally, just a nice summary of some of the tips which I've mentioned throughout this webinar. So the main one is a bad brief and estimate will have significant hidden cost implications. Now, like I said before, if you take anything away from this webinar, this is a really, really key one. So getting it right at those planning stages is so critical. If it's not right, okay, it can have really, really bad implications on your jobs and obviously cause over-servicing, which can also lead to no increase of profitability. Right, so also communicate at those planning stages, something that we've mentioned throughout. Input accurate information to the business. So whether you are using a project management tool, whether you're using Excel, whether you've got a manual process or something built in-house, ensuring that that data is accurate. So that's not only the estimating, but that's also the scheduling and the time recording as well. will give you that visibility to do something about your over servicing. Selling enough hours, again, going back to those early stages, if you're not selling the number of hours in which you have available, then the team are going to work on the jobs that they do have on hand, okay, and they may not have, you may not have the budget there with the estimated hours to do that. And finally, track time and notes against the jobs, the clients, and the staff. So by tracking time and notes against all of these areas, again, it will gain visibility, give you that visibility to do something about it if a job looks as though it will go over. Okay, so that's all from me today. I hope you got some really good tips from this webinar. We will be putting on more webinars on things such as how to increase profitability. One of those areas is obviously starting with how to reduce over-servicing. So please feel free to have a look at our website, which you can see on the screen there. Join any of our webinars. If you'd like any more details on this webinar, or if you'd like me to send you a recording, just let me know. My email address is again on the screen in front of you, and we hope to see you on many more webinars. Thanks ever so much, guys.